I don't know what I'm talking about. So let's get Bridget on. Bridget, if you're there, do you want to say hello and join? Or maybe I can bring Bridget in as well. Let's see how I can do that. Bridget should be joining us now.
Hello.
Hello, Bridget. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah. So I didn't give your intro, so I should do that.
Oh,
I think the sun's gone to me a little bit today. I've been out too long and forgot to put sun cream on and haven't done any of the kind of housekeeping stuff that I should do. So if anyone's watching, there's no fire drill. If there's a fire alarm goes off in your house, that's on you. That's not here, so that's not in my house if there's a fire alarm. I know where the toilet is in my house. Hopefully you know where the toilet is in your house, so that's the housekeeping done. But for people that don't know Bridget, I'm just going to try and hold my laptop up so it looks like I've memorized it, but I'm actually just going to read off the screen. So Bridget is the co-editor of Burning Eye Books, an indie press based in the Southwest. Burning Eye is the biggest publisher of spoken word, performance, slam poetry in the UK, published over 180 touring poets, 60,000 copies of their books, proving that performance poetry has a place on the page. Also, Bridget is a freelance editor and helps performance poets recreate their poems for page and publication. That's the bit that Bridget sent to me. What I will say is Burning Eye are wicked. So they published my first book last year and I love Burning Eye to bits. So I wouldn't be doing any of this nonsense if it wasn't for Burning Eye. So yeah, I'm really pleased that you've wanted to have a chat today, Bridget. We had a bit of a chat yesterday, so we'll just recreate that for the people watching.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it'd be really good. We'll get some poems off you. We'll have a bit of a chat. I think it'd be good to know like what you're up to, but also like what it's like to be a publisher. I think in lockdown, I think that'd be really interesting for people. But yeah, where do we find you?
Me personally.
Yeah, personally now, not where does everyone come and find you after this. I mean, just in this square now. You don't need to give your full address out. That's all right.
In my studio. Wow, it's actually a glorified garage. I live in a garage around the back of one of the shops on Stapleton Road. So this is where I've been for the last week, and before that I was at my mum's for 9 weeks for lockdown.
Wow, yeah.
Coming to you from entirely my aesthetic surroundings.
Yeah. How's lockdown with your mum being? I mean, you don't have to say anything bad, obviously. I mean, she might be watching. Hi, Bridget's mum, if you're watching.
It was actually great. It was really nice to like spend some time with my mum and her partner, and I think overall we've got like a better understanding of each other now. And yeah, it was really nice. I think I just got to a point where I was like, I'm forgetting who I am as a person, so I think it's probably time that I go back to Bristol.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really glad that I made that decision. It's been really nice to be home.
Yeah. And have you found lockdown in terms of writing? Have you managed to get anything? You were working on something before this all happened, weren't you? Have you been able to kind of crack on with that? And
yeah, so I've been like working towards a new collection that's sort of a concept collection about the characters in Grease and Grease 2, because I just woke up one day and was like, oh, I really love that musical. I'm going to write some poems about it. And then it just sort of escalated from there. And people are really excited about it because it's Grease and they know what it is and stuff. So
you fan of all musicals, or is it just Grease in particular?
my mum used to take me to see a lot of musicals when I was a kid. So I do love yeah, big fan.
Where do you stand on Grease 2 then? Because that is a controversial one, isn't it? Is it Michelle Pfeiffer? Is that Grease 2? Is it?
Yeah, so it's Michelle Pfeiffer's first cinematic debut, and
Yeah.
I think it's a great film. There's definitely some, like, if you look at it in comparison to the first one, there's so much more rigid gender things in the second one. There's a lot of the pink ladies aren't allowed to go out with anyone that aren't T-birds, and that struggle was more in the forefront. So it's kind of interesting because the kind of roles are reversed. So the bad girl is already the bad girl, and the boy straight laced and then goes bad kind of thing. So, but I love it. It's got some great songs in it. It just depends on your preference, really. I mean, the people that I know.
Came out in the 80s. Was it set in the 60s but came out in the 80s, or set in the 50s? Was it?
It's only set like a couple of years after the original Grease, but it was done, in the 90s. So yeah, it's kind of got a bit of a different style to it. But it's interesting, like looking at those gender things and making something in the 70s compared to the 90s and stuff.
Yeah. So what are you doing in terms of the poetry then? Are you kind of reimagining those films through poetry or the characters?
I've just been like reading about Greece. Like there's some books out there, guys. I've just been like reading like people's dissertations and like all kinds of things just to get some like inspiration of like the characters and stuff. Because like when you look at it a bit more deeply, it is really interesting in like terms of like looking at race and looking at immigration in America in the 50s. And I identify as queer, so whenever I watch anything, I always make it queer in my head. I'm always like, yeah, those two, they're so queer together. Yeah. It's sort of like queer fan fiction in a way.
Yeah.
I'm having loads of fun with it. It's really good.
That's the main thing, isn't it? Yeah. So you kind of, are you writing poems in the voices of the characters then? Have you been doing some of that?
Yeah, so a bit of that, a bit of like script writing and like some cut and paste kind of things as well. It's kind of a bit of an experiment really, because I think it's built on something that's already exists in the world. I'm just kind of to get really creative with form and structure and things.
Yeah. Amazing. How have you found that in terms of, Joe, I didn't write one single question about Greece here, but I'm off on a tangent now. So this is it. We're not even going to talk about Burning Eye. I'm just going to do half an hour on Greece. But how have you found that in terms of thinking about, like, once you've got into that flow of writing about Greece and knowing you've honed that down and that's the subject, has that helped, or has that kind of hindered you a little bit in terms of writing? Or have you just felt like, actually, I can just go with this, so I'm not having to write about, I don't know, personal history and things like that? Or clearly, are you writing bits of yourself into it as well?
I don't know, it's actually a massive relief, and I think that's part of the reason why I started focusing on it, was because it was like my anxiety about writing is so much less because I'm writing about stuff that isn't to do with my life, or you know, that afraid of it in a way. Like so I have PTSD, and that means that a lot of the time I get really ruled by fear, and I don't write as much as I want to because I kind of have this like really bad anxiety and this fear of writing. So actually it's really broken down a lot of those walls for me, because I feel like I'm incorporating that part of me from years ago that was writing Harry Potter fan fiction.
yeah.
Like my love of poetry now into it, and kind of combining the two. So even if I never do anything with it, it's such a fun thing for me to just get back into writing with.
That's amazing. I'm going to ask you to read a poem. And is this where you tell me that you're going to read a poem about something else, or you're going to read a Greece poem?
No, I can read a Greece poem. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, read what you want. But I was like, I thought we'll have a massive conversation about Greece and then say, can you read me a poem? And then you're going to, like, I don't know, read a poem about microwaves or something. I was like, I didn't think this through, did I?
Yeah, of course. I'm also going to read it off my laptop, because that's what we're doing. So I'm going to read the first one that I wrote that kind of kicked it all off, really, which is called An Ode to Kaniki's Softness, because I think Kaniki is a really soft boy. He's a really soft boy, and I think it really, in certain scenes, it really shines through, like when he's asking Danny to like be his second and stuff. Like in those little moments, you can kind of see how soft and gentle he is. So it's kind of inspired by that.
Amazing.
He uses grease to smother those parts. Toughness does not come naturally to a boy who liked both parents when divorce was mutual enough that no one screamed aloud. The T-birds squawk around their matriarch, who murmurs hard love through the butt of a cigarette. Stand open-mouthed, catching morsels, regurgitate them for Danny, who keeps Kaniki tied to the wheel, makes him iron his Letterman sweater, slouch in every scene. Grease lightning was a fight Kaniki lost, a consolation of painkillers and penny luck. But still, he craves approval, desperately wants someone to take him under the hood of a car and let him just come apart.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Bridget. I think that there's anyone who's watching this is probably going to go away now and try and revisit Greece and kind of watch it through new eyes. I think it's something I only ever watched on like bank holidays and stuff. And I can't remember the last time I watched Grease. How many times have you watched Grease? And then we'll move on from Grease. Yeah.
So many times, like a lot. And I've watched it like a couple of times since lockdown for research.
I was going to say, has it been a lockdown viewing? Yeah, very good. So in terms of writing that project, then, obviously, as we mentioned at the start, you're co-editor at Burning Eye Books. How does that? Because Burning Eye is so giving towards the poets, I've found anyway, my own experience in terms of support and enabling people to kind of put their poetry out there. How do you find that then, as a someone involved in the publisher, in terms of that, finding that balance between your own poetry and helping others out?
Oh, it's a weird balance. I think it kind of comes in waves. So the work is kind of constant. You know, Burning Eye is just a continual thing that goes on. But I think like I said earlier, like I really struggle to write, and there is a lot of anxiety for me around writing and being vulnerable on the page or whatever. So I tend to think that it is harder sometimes to like push my own work, and I will hide behind Burning Eye to be part of the community and to have some kind of sway in the community without it being about my own writing. And that takes the pressure off me a lot, so I can just quietly do submissions in the background every now and again. And I really love hosting. That's what she said. It's like one of my favorite things about being part of the poetry world, and doing things like Uni Slam through Burning Eye is an amazing experience. So I feel like I do progress as a poet, but it's sort of in a very kind of secondary place, which suits me.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen you read a couple of times, and you're a wonderful poet on stage, and I think you really kind of have a way that really draws the audience in and makes it feel really intimate, I think. And yeah, I think I'm really glad that you still do your poetry, because it is fabulous, as you've just shown through your poem there. One of the things you just said then is that Burning Eye is a continual thing. Obviously, during lockdown, it hasn't been that continual. What is the impact on lockdown been for a publisher? And also, I think for anyone watching, maybe it's worth just setting out what it means to be an indie press, because I think people maybe have this idea of a publisher being, you know, Penguin Books and 10,000 people sat behind desks churning away all the time. But what does it mean to be in an indie press? You know, what does it look like?
Well, for me and Clive, it's me and Clive really. So Clive works from home like one day a week. He's got another business that he runs. And I work here in my flat like 4 days a week. And Kate does some finances, and Shagufta's done some work for us, and Josie's done some work for us before. But essentially, it's just me and Clive. There's no central place. You know, when we have meetings, it's either on Google Hangouts, or I go away to Portishead, which is like, you know, an hour and a half to get there from where I live. You know, and sit around the table and stuff. And it's funny because we do get a lot of emails from people that want to intern with us, or they would love to meet at our offices to talk about publishing, and we're like, oh, great.
Yeah. Just to clarify, actually, I think because so Kate is Clive's wife, so Kate Burney. Shagufta Iqbal is a Bristol-based poet, isn't she? And Josie Alford is another Bristol-based poet as well. So anyone who hears those names and wants to look out for those, I'll put their names in the links as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so they've been great and come on and done like various bits for us, and it's been really amazing. But yeah, for us, I think not a huge amount has changed, other than the fact that we've made the decision to stagger our titles. So the way that Burning Eye works as a press, you know, our publishing deal is that we produce poetry books for touring artists to buy wholesale from us, and then they are the main output of sales. That's how it's always been. That's just kind of what we do. So in terms of lockdown and that affecting our personal book sales, it's actually been better because Amazon are not buying new stock. So, and people are thinking much more locally. So we're seeing more sales coming through our web store than we might usually.
And buying direct from the poets as well, I assume. Yeah.
So you know, staggering the books has worked out really well for us. Usually our schedule can vary between 2 books a month to 5 books a month, you know, depending on the poet's particular schedules. So staggering them has actually been quite nice in terms of having more time to like promote each title and spend doing things that we wouldn't usually do. So one of the things that we're doing for our new poets is we're doing Instagram live book launches, where they take over our Instagram account for like an hour and do poems from the book. So we've had Laurie, Eves, Maria Ferguson, Agnes Torok, and Jonathan Kinsman just the other day. And they've all been really, really nice because it sort of like there's a personal feel that they're taking over. It's their platform for however long they want it. And then also doing a spot on the podcast, so I'll do an interview with them that goes into some of the stuff they touch on in the launch in a bit more detail, and you know, my general nonchalant chatting. That if you've ever talked on the podcast, I just chat shit.
And you say then, like, so one of the things is around Burning Out Sports touring poets. Obviously, it's a bit more difficult at the moment to tour at all. So you know, when I put my book out last year, I scheduled a load of gigs. I contacted gigs that were coming up. I went and read at open mics. I put my own events on. Are people finding it difficult to feel like that they're only getting one hit of the cherry, you know, in terms of like you do your launch on Zoom and then or on Insta Live, as whatever it may be, and then think, well, actually that's it now, I've done my launch, because I can't just do this same thing 5 or 6 times that you might do if you're going on a bit of a tour. Has people said that that's been a bit more difficult?
I haven't touched in with like our March people that released in March yet, so for that kind of thing. But I think that in terms of, you know, you would know after doing Only Air that at the beginning, because of your pre-orders and like friends, family, people, the excitement, the book hype, so you get like that real peak at the very beginning where you sell loads and loads of books, and then as you kind of do your gigs, you know, it kind of levels out a little bit more. So I haven't spoken to them about what happens after that at the moment. But I think people are responding more, so that peak is even higher for people at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Which is really nice. But yeah, I guess time will tell to see, you know, what sort of happens after that. You know, we're sort of reviewing in August what we're going to do about the books at the end of the year. And we might have to push them back into 2021. Just so that, you know, our entire year isn't based on digital output and things like that, because it is hard. You know, there's a lot of free stuff going on at the moment, but the paid stuff is kind of not as well attended as it should be. And I think there is a real need to support, or at least, you know, think about the way that we consume poetry digitally and try and improve that a little bit, because I'm not sure.
I think everyone's trying to have to learn, aren't they? I think on the one hand, you know, you've kind of got your head around being a poet and putting a book together. And now people are really quickly having to learn, actually, how do I put on an online launch? Or how do I do regular events like this? How do I kind of figure Insta Live out? I think if people haven't got, you know, Instagram profiles, or they've not got, you know, tens of thousands of followers, it can be a bit intimidating for people to do and think, well, what's the point in doing it to 5 or 6 people? But I think I've found, just keep doing it. You might only have a handful of people watching live, but you're going to get 100, 200 views of it further on down the line, and they'll keep churning away. So I would really say to people, like, just bite the bullet and crack on and put some stuff online, you know, because actually there's nothing really to lose at this stage, and actually you can put that out yourself and have also that creative control over how you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of autonomy being used at the moment in terms of writers doing their own thing and being like, you know, Henry and I, within like the first week of lockdown, were like, should we just do an online gig? Let's just do, you know, and, you know, it's at your fingertips and it's easy to access. And, you know, we've briefly talked to people about making, you know, this accessible format even more accessible, and then keeping it after lockdown so that people still go to gigs without having to leave the house.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to come back to that in a second, because I've got a question for you on that. But shall we have another poem before I forget that I'm supposed to be asking you to read some poems as well?
Yeah, no, of course. I'm actually going to now chicken out and read a poem from one of our poets, which I like. So I'm going to, I was reading All the Days We Don't Revolt by Agnes Torok, which came out in March. It's such a fitting book for the time. and I've been like following a lot of the new stuff going on in Minneapolis at the moment, and feeling very sad and angry, and in solidarity with everybody that's protesting right now against police brutality. So I found this poem in Agnes's book, and it's simply called Protest. Our bodies moving together, sacred. Our lungs singing together. Our feet marching together, ancient. Our hope building together, movement.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I think we've seen that. I think you can still protest and have a voice online as a collective movement. I think, you know, the sort of outpouring of stuff over the past couple of days on this, I think, proves in the things that we've been seeing in this country with, you know, Dominic Cummings and that kind of the issues there that we've had. I think we can still find a way of having a voice. It's really important to still kind of hold on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So. I was doing a yoga class earlier this week, and there is a point to this. This is not the world's worst tangent, and I hadn't realised I wasn't on mute, and I was having a proper slag off about Dominic Cummings when I was thought I was on mute, and everyone was just then, yeah, I agree, and I was like, oh, that's embarrassing. So there you go. Another way of protesting is just join a load of Zoom meetings and then just turn yourself off mute and just shout about them. So yeah. One of the things you said then was around just getting on and kind of watching things from your own home. Like, you're really into the punk scene, aren't you? And we were chatting yesterday, and you said you've been watching loads of punk gigs online.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that work? How does like the energy of the atmosphere of a punk gig work when you sat on your sofa? Like, can you still make?
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of them, it's not full band, you know, that kind of like live sound hasn't quite translated to social media yet. So there's a lot of stuff. I've done some punk shows, I've done some poems at some punk shows and other poets and things like that. And I think, I think it's been really nice just to connect with people without having to leave the house. That sounds really bad, but it's nice.
Yeah, it's true.
Have a cup of tea on the sofa and watch a punk show rather than having put on my studs and like
punk on the top, PJs on the bottom. Is that the feeling?
This is what's happening right now.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting because that's the sort of thing that you think, actually, how on earth would something like that still happen? You know, like, is the actual even concept of putting a gig on Zoom the sort of the antithesis of being punk? I mean, is that even, you know, is that going against everything that a punk might believe in? But I'm sure it's not. I think it's good to kind of still stick this stuff out, isn't it? Yeah.
Punk finds a way.
There you go. We could just end now, couldn't we, with just that as the tagline of "Punk finds a way." I think that's one of the things. The other thing I was going to talk about was you mentioned having to kind of move stuff into the future. What do you think, like, as a publisher, how do you think, have you and Clive had time to talk about what the future of publishing might look like in terms of, this probably is a very big question, but can you see it impacting at all over the next few months?
I have to admit, when lockdown started, I was very scared that, I mean, I think about this a lot as someone that has anxiety. I'm always like, if like shit hits the fan, like no one's going to buy books anymore. So we're the first to go. Artists and everything, we're the first to go. Shit, what do we do? So I have been worried in terms of that, but I think I'm not giving Burning Eye as a little institution the credit it deserves, because it's resilient and it's strong and it survived Brexit, and you know, it can keep moving forward. And I think we're going into our like 10th year of publishing next year. It's 10 years of Burning Eye.
A hell of a milestone, isn't it? Yeah.
Maybe if we were a bit younger and smaller, then I might not be so confident. But I think we've got to a point now where, you know, like I said earlier, we've published, you know, hundreds of poets, and, you know, we've published, thousands of books have been printed, and like the message is well and truly alive. So I hope and I think, and I'm being positive that, you know, Burning Eye will withstand this and will keep going. I think especially at the moment because people need poetry, and I think people are buying poetry because it's hopeful, and it's also something, you know, quick to digest at home when you're like, ooh.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think that is it, isn't it? I think poetry still it exists. It's in a form that people can dip in and out of. I think it will still exist. I think because poets will find stuff to write about, and I think, you know, and also I think it might spark that creativity in people that have had more time in their hands, and might start a new wave of new poets, which I think of people trying to articulate some thoughts that they're not quite sure about. I would say to anyone who's unsure about whether that is, and if you're kind of confused by what's going on, is get a piece of paper and start writing and see what comes out of it. And that's where my poetry came from, was a time that I was kind of confused and not sure where I kind of sat in the world. And I think I would say to people, like, just start writing. And if you're cross about something, write it down. If you're happy about something, if you're happy about the fact that you found a new recipe for sourdough bread, write it down, you know, and let's see what comes out of it, I think. And yeah, I'm sure poetry will carry on existing.
Yeah. As long as there's a variety of voices in the poetry world, we'll publish them, you know.
Yeah.
Sort of where I'm at with it, really. Like, I feel very privileged as a queer non-binary person to be in a position where I'm gatekeeping, sort of, in the poetry world, you know.
Yeah, it's lovely.
As our platform, and I'm very aware of that privilege that I have, and also the honor that, you know, it's nice for me to be like in that position and be able to give a platform to the people that deserve it, that work hard, that poetry speaks to them and it is unique to them. And I think I'm so passionate about it. As long as that passion's still going, I think Burning Eye will be fine.
Yeah, good. And so, and the message here is buy more books. You know, buy more books. Yeah, I mean, we'll share all the links and stuff. But just quickly before we get a final poem from yourself, where can people find out more about Burning Eye then?
So you can check us out on our website, which is burningeye.co.uk. It'll take you to our web store where you can browse all of our books and all of our little categories and things like that. You can also find us on our blog, which is burningeyeBooks.wordpress.com. And you can sign up to our mailing list. So one of the things I've been doing in lockdown is doing a weekly newsletter, which just updates everybody on what we're doing with our launches and things, but also some of the things that our poets are doing in the week online, and how you can like find them and get involved with what they're doing. So come and find us. You can also find me here on Be Heart Yeah.
We have to be clear. It's not. No, I'm not going to send people to your house, Bridget. I think it's on Instagram, isn't it? When you say here, they're watching you in your house. I think it's
at Be Heart Yeah. Come and find me there. Or you can find me at Chips and Beans podcast, where I have a DIY punk podcast with my friend Cassie, and we talk a lot about gigs and sex and loads of other stuff. So come and join us.
Cracking. It sounds amazing. And actually, just as a plug for another Burning Eye poet, Penny Pepper, who's another poet, disabled poet, is doing her first Insta Live next. So once we've finished, if you go into Instagram and search for Penny Pepper, you can go and watch another Burning Eye poet being amazing and do some great poems as well. So yeah, I think let's fill Instagram with Burning Eye poets. Who's next then? Who's on who have you got coming up? The next book that's coming out.
We've just released Mary Dickens' Happiness FM, which is an amazingly cheerful book, and it's bright yellow. Every time
it's a great cover, a really great cover, yeah.
Cover, really satisfying, good palette, yeah, I like that. And then in June we've got a new book by Molly Naylor, Stop Trying to Be Fantastic, and then we've got Redesire by Afshan Lodi, which I'm really excited about. So both of those books are coming out in June, and they're going to be amazing. So
yeah, great stuff. Okay, right. Thank you, Bridget. I've really enjoyed that. That's flown by. Shall we get a really quick final poem from yourself?
Okay. Okay. I'm like, okay. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. This is a poem about disassociative moments when it's inconvenient to have a disassociative moment. I am late the afternoon I come to help shift furniture, flushing with an early period, desperate for water and smoke, chattering as if I'd never formed words. Your room has flung itself around in a rage, it looks like. The skirting boards bearing teeth, the high corners crumbling artex, low window swung open, net swaying on a September breeze. I think all this as your mouth moves along, I can see the exhaustion pushing it. I wish I was here with you in my body, holding yours. I roll unspoken dread into joints. You bend into the sun like a parched weed while we listen to Bessie Smith. The furniture collects dust. Thanks.
Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, Bridget. I really enjoyed that. That's been wonderful to chat and hear about you and Bernie and I and hear some poems as well. So I'm just going to do a quick screen grab that I can share afterwards. So we'll do this a bit where we kind of going at the camera. Lovely. Right. And I get more northern when I do this stuff. Lovely. And I'll share this. I'll put this will go on my Instagram TV and I'll see if I can stick it on YouTube and do other stuff with it. But yeah, that's been really great. Thanks so much, Bridget. Yeah, speak soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.